have heard from the far sides of both ends of this conversation, the conversation being, is sustainable living more expensive? So many people say yes, and an equal amount of people say no. Let me explain why I think that is. It really depends where you're coming from and how you're approaching sustainable living, right? On this side, what I think often happens is it's people who are living in a way that is really, really affordable, right? Maybe you're always purchasing the absolute cheapest of XYZ item. A lot of things that are deemed a sustainable practice by today's culture of eco-friendly living being trendy, apparently. A lot of the things that we talk about and preach about are things that a lot of low-income people and BIPOC people were already doing. A lot of the things we talk about aren't new. And so if you're on this side of things, then maybe if people are talking about what people are marketing as a sustainable lifestyle, right, you start thinking you need all these different swaps to live a more sustainable lifestyle. Then you try to buy this expensive thing and that expensive thing. And then it can seem like living sustainably is more expensive. Whereas if you're on this side and you're like me, and you're doing a lot of things that wasteful American culture does, like wasting a ton of money on shopping. Shopping is your only hobby. You use a lot of disposables, you drive a super fuel inefficient vehicle, all those sort of things. Switching over to the more eco-friendly version of them is going to save you money. So I think it depends on where you're coming from and where you're going. This side, this was me. We'll throw up a picture of me when I was this person right here. But personally for me, living a sustainable lifestyle has been so much more affordable. And I can remember that from when I used to like literally never repeat an outfit. It is a shameful time in my life. But equally, I know a lot of people who still live that way and who are literally just driving themselves into a financial hole to keep up with the Joneses is probably how a lot of people would say it. My personal version of sustainable living means buying as little as you can and buying nearly nothing new. Everything you purchase is secondhand, which in and of itself will save you a ton of money. And sustainable living should be about using what you already have, reusing things that come into your life, conserving resources and using less when we talk about things like energy, gas, all that sort of stuff. It should inevitably, for the average American anyway, lower your carbon footprint and your bills at the end of the day. I will say though, before I started living what I would consider an eco-friendly lifestyle, if I had stayed on that trajectory, there are areas of my life where I would have spent a lot more living eco-friendly and a lot less. And I think that that's really important to acknowledge that there is privilege in this lifestyle in a lot of different ways. And we're gonna see that a lot throughout this video. But after I took this look at my finances, because finances give me severe anxiety, I'll go into why that is on my secret newsletter later this week, but check it in, I'll link it in the description. But after I took a look at all this stuff, I started to realize that where I'm spending is putting my money where my mouth is, voting with my dollar for things I think are worthy of my money and things that I want to see more of in the world. So we're gonna get into it, but I do want to give a big thank you to today's sponsor. I'm so excited about this sponsor, okay, you guys? It's Wealthfront. If you didn't already know, I am working on my investment portfolio this year. I'm like hardcore in the trenches, literally got like a financial advisor. I'm learning about all these different things so that I can turn around and teach it to you once I've got it all figured out. And I'm almost there. But I've had an account with Wealthfront for a while, and I'm super excited to let you know that they actually now have a more sustainable investing option. Since we're talking about money today, I think it's important to realize where we store our money and where we invest our money and the impacts on the environment that that has. I actually have a whole video about how you might be funding climate change and you might not even know it. I'll link that video up here. But essentially, since the Paris Climate Agreement, billions and billions of dollars have been pumped into fossil fuel expansion. And where our money is, Tippy's doing it again. Knock over mom's light. Why would I not do that? I still remember when the light bulb went off on my head. It's like, I'm voting with my dollar every time I spend a dollar, but what about where my money is sitting and what I'm investing in? And when that light bulb went off, it was a rude awakening, which is why I'm very excited to tell you about Wealthfront's socially responsible portfolio. The portfolio lets you invest in a diversity of funds that screen for business involvement in civilian firearms, controversial weapons, tobacco, thermal coal, and oil sands. You can further customize your portfolio to invest in what you believe in the most, including renewable energy, gender diversity, minority empowerment, animal welfare, and so much more. So this is perfect if you want to start sustainably investing but you don't know where to start. It's really helpful for people who are beginners to let it kind of do its thing. And then once you learn more about it, because like I said, I've been on this journey, it takes a bit of learning to know what the heck is going on. So you can dive in and get super specific if you know how and what you want to invest in. So if this is something you've been thinking about, check it out with the link at the top of my description. I'm so excited about this. I think more companies need to be leading the charge in things like this. And let's get into what I personally spend in a month. I'm gonna start with what most people's biggest bill is, but luckily for me, it is not. I'm actually really proud of this, I guess. Housing, right? Rent, mortgage, all that sort of stuff. Whenever we decided to buy this house, it was a very strategic move, and I've talked about this before. I won't harp on this for too long, but basically Madison's really interested in like the way that you can invest via housing. We still want to do it in a very ethical way and all that sort of stuff. We're doing our best. But right now I think it's quite an ethical setup because we currently live in this household and my sister rents one of the rooms. So our mortgage, the way Madison and my finances are also weird. You're going to learn that throughout this. Some of the bills we split, some of the bills I pay for all of. It's just, I'm telling you my portion of things right now. So just take that into consideration. It's a weird situation. I'll explain it as we go. Anyway, my part of the mortgage is only $400. Which is pretty crazy because that's literally what we paid to live in our old garage apartment. But just the way that we've split it between the multiple people living here, you know, it's also Texas. I'm sure you've heard how cheap housing here is in Texas. Now that doesn't include the utilities, and for the amount of windows in this home that we have, and being in Texas, I think because we have the Nest thermostat, we have different LED lights, we have different light control sensors that help the lights stay off when they're supposed to be, all that sort of stuff helps us keep our utility bill really, really low. So trash, water, electric, and gas altogether probably runs me between $100 and $150 a month after I took account for the last like 6 months. We're also really lucky because here in San Antonio, we only have to pay for the trash, and we have the smallest trash can, obviously, so it's the lowest cost, which, you know, it's a small perk, but it's a perk nonetheless of sustainable living. And then composting and recycling are actually free in San Antonio, which, bless. My phone bill is $60. My mom used to work for AT&T, and so she gets a discount. I pay her at the beginning of the year for the whole year. Actually, it's been really, really nice. But broken down into months, it's about $60. I never really realized how expensive owning a car is until I did this breakdown. But my Prius, I did like finance it. Is that how you... That's how you say it. I financed my Prius. My credit union gave me an incredibly low interest rate, so it just made sense once I learned some things about finances that I just take the loan. Another way my bills are super cheap is my dad used to own a delivery business, so he has all of his cars on the same plan, making it a lot cheaper, so my car insurance is only like $50 a month. And gas is like seriously so low because I work from home, but also because I drive a hybrid. So I literally only have to fill up my tank like once a month, if that. Which again is another huge savings from sustainable living, because when I used to drive the Explorer that my parents gave me in high school, wow, was it expensive to fill that bitch up all the time. Now you're about to see where the bulk of my expenses are. It's eating. Is anyone surprised? So my main goal every month is to spend less on eating out than I spend on eating in. I'm not always successful there, I'll be honest. I calculated over the last 6 months that I spend between $400 and $500 on food for inside our home, like not takeout, just groceries and stuff. Honestly, that number seems really high, but also really low. A lot of things come to mind when I think about this, but I think about how Madison and I in college literally would spend around $100 every 2 weeks for groceries, and we were eating super Whole Foods plant-based. Like that was kind of expensive for us, but I was always buying like the cheapest thing at the grocery store because that's what we had to do. A lot of times that means supporting unethical and really unsustainable business practices, and so seeing this number compared to that seems really high. But when I think about the fact that all the food we buy is either local, organic, or saved from the landfill, really it's not that bad. We get most of our food from 2 things: a CSA box, which is like a local sustainable agriculture box in San Antonio, and number 2, Imperfect Foods. I shop a lot with Imperfect Foods, which I think is how this number stays relatively low compared to what I think it would cost if we weren't using Imperfect Foods. I remember when I was a kid and I would try to convince my mom to buy organic things, right? Or locally made things. I remember one time we went to the farmer's market and she was so upset about about the price of cucumbers. And I remember her saying,
these people just don't know what the point of a farmer's market is. They forget that the reason people come here is because it's cheaper and local and da-da-da-da-da.
And I found that so intriguing by the way that things have changed from when she was a kid to now. So when my grandma used to go to the farmer's market, it was literally to save money because it was cheaper for them to buy from the local farmer's market. Fast forward to today where we have a crazy amount of subsidies for different farmers to make their food cheaper, so that we can produce food on a scale to feed the population on the current amount of land that we have to do so. And I think a lot of people are like my mom and not realizing the disconnect between why that is happening and why large-scale farmers who can mass produce monocrops and they get subsidies and they do things in a way that takes advantage of the soil and ruins it, instead of a small-scale farmer who can't afford to just destroy their soil, they have to make sure that they are able to recoup all of the stuff that they can. And I know it's a very simplified way of looking at it, but that's why you see the price discrepancy between sustainable food and really unsustainably long-term food. I feel like I'm very passionate about this topic because something else I really want to drive home is my mom used to always say that that stuff was expensive, right? We can't pick the organic, we can't pick the plant-based, we can't pick the local food because it's expensive. And that's why I think it really matters where you're coming from and where you're going with sustainable living, because my mom was never a low-income person. We were very privileged in that way. We never had to worry about not having money to buy something. But my mom chose to spend all of her disposable income on things that really didn't bring value to her life and were completely unsustainable for the planet. She is definitely where I got my hyper consumerism from, always going shopping, always buying new things that we don't need. And I remember once I got to college saying, we don't need all this stuff. The only thing that we actually have to buy, that we actually have to live, is food. And so if there's anywhere you want to spend your money, it's there. And I'm really proud looking at my finances that I have aligned those two things, because I truly believe that like our food system is incredibly fucked up and I want to support it not being that way. So then I would say on average, I would either spend like that much, but oftentimes around $100 more eating out a month. But again, this is something that I don't feel bad about, because once again, food is the only thing that we absolutely have to buy. And if all of my other expenses are super low and this is where I'm spending my money, I'm really proud of that, because most of the time where we're purchasing things from are locally, sustainably, plant-based businesses. If you watch the vlog channel, I'll link a video up here and I'll link it down below. Pretty much every time we order food, it's from like a local, sustainable. We don't do a lot of the giant conglomerate brands and all that sort of stuff when we order in. Now keep in mind, groceries for me is just groceries. It's not home stuff, hygiene stuff, all that sort of stuff, because I purchase that from places that I can't get food from, if that makes sense. And I don't repurchase hygiene stuff a whole lot because a lot of my stuff lasts a long time. Like my shampoo, I only repurchase it like every 6 months. Deodorant, I always have a huge stock of it under my sink, so I don't really buy that often. The month I was calculating for right now, I did have to repurchase my dish soap, which lasts us about 2 or 3 months, and that was about $25. Which I will acknowledge is a very expensive compared to like the lowest cost dish soap at Target. But again, a way I'm happy to support with my dollar, because if you don't know, I'll link my cleaning routine up here. So many links for you today. But I purchased our dish soap from a small woman-owned business that has a refill system, and I just absolutely love it. Some other things to run through: gym membership, $30. I offset my carbon footprint every month, which is around $10. And then I end up giving a lot of money to supporting creators and supporting different nonprofits. The last couple months it's been around $800, which was crazy to look at. I guess I didn't realize I was spending that much, but it's something that I feel like once you have disposable income to do something with, like do something with it. I've talked a lot recently about how I'm really not a good activist, and I feel like giving to organizations who are doing that work that I just personally am not good at is the best way I can support the things that I give a shit about, right? So I have different nonprofits that have reoccurring donations too. When things come up, I give. And then I also support a bunch of different creators on things like Patreon. I'll do the little like thanks thing that exists now to just tip them. Our Changing Climate is someone I'm a patron of. I absolutely think their work is so important. Last month I was matching donations to Line 3, so I donated about $600 to that. So it's a lot of different things, but I really think that if you have disposable income, you should be giving it away. And as someone who's in a pretty comfortable place in my finances, that's how I choose to spend it. And then there's things I spend money on for my business, which again, did not see this coming, but apparently last month I spent around $700 on business expenses. Oh, I know most businesses spend a lot more on their business, but I thought I don't spend a lot of money on my business. And then I started looking at my finances and I was like, damn. So last month I filmed with a student the Zero Waste Transformation series. I'll link that video up here. I had to buy a lot of things for her for that, and just like to get her set up for school and all that sort of stuff. That was a big portion of it. And then I forget that I pay my editor, which is Tara. Say hello, Tara. I just completely forgot that I pay her. And then I have people who help me with other little various things. And honestly, some months it's $700, which honestly, looking through the last 6 months of finances, if you take like the transformation series out of it, last month was a really, really low month because I started uploading only once a week. And so I've had less videos like going in and out with Tara and less research to put into them and all that sort of stuff. Then these other couple things are not really spending and they vary a lot. So I don't really know how to like put them away, but two things that I always put money away for, it's not really spending, are savings. So like retirement and like short-term savings and all that sort of stuff. And then travel. Again, if you watch the vlog channel, there are only really two areas in life that I think I spend money. And I tell everyone this all the time: food and travel. So I always put money aside for travel because, again, I think if there's something that's I want to spend my money on, it's experiences rather than things. I really, really love the amount of things that we've been able to do over the last like couple years. And so I'm always setting money aside for travel because some months we don't go anywhere and we don't spend any money on it, and other months, like this one, we're traveling really, really long term. And if you want to see where I'm at right now, I'm recording this in advance because we're going on a very long trip for fall. If you want to come check it out, come follow me on Instagram. I'm so excited about it. But this is my total monthly expenses. I'm going to have Tara calculate it because anxiety. And I'd love to hear if you think that's expensive or not that expensive. And I would love if you compare it to your finances. And once again, I just want to acknowledge, I'm aware that I'm incredibly privileged, but I'm also very proud that I'm at a point in my life where I'm able to support things that I truly believe in and supporting the world that I want to see. I think that in a lot of ways where I spend money reflects what the world would look like if we moved over to something that was non-exploitive of people and the planet and all that sort of stuff. Don't forget to check out today's sponsor, Wealthfront. I'm super excited about this investing portfolio opportunity. So check them out, the link at the top of the description. And remember, until next time, you cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that you can do. Bye, guys.